Rudolf Diesel dreamed of creating an engine that would be truly efficient. His diesel engine, designed in 1892 and 93, was successfully built in 1897. It was one of the key inventions that contributed to the success of the second industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution was powered by water power and then by steam. However, the stationary steam engine that drove the mills, mines, and factories, perfected by James Watt and improved by George Corliss, was grossly inefficient, with a thermal efficiency of between 10 and 15%. This entailed a huge waste of resources and money, and also created atmospheric pollution on an epic scale. Although the environment was not the burning issue, pun intended, it is today. Engineers strove to create an engine that would approach the efficiency of the ideal engine proposed by Nicola Carnot in 1824. Carnot studied the engines of his day, including both steam and internal combustion engines, and he described an ideal heat engine that would work on the four-step cycle. Heat is transferred from a high temperature source to expand a working substance, gas or liquid, and work the position. As a piston and cylinder are perfectly insulated, they cannot gain or lose heat. The working substance expands until the expansion causes it to cool. The cooling working substances transfers the heat to the lower temperature sink, and compression of the working substance in the insulated engine causes its temperature to rise, returning it to the same state as in step 1. The author's thoughts on this. When I began constructing my engine in the early 90s, the existing method was a total failure. The enormous pressures generated by the machine, the friction between the moving parts, the magnitude of which had never been seen before, forced me to minutely examine the stress on each single organ and to delve extensively into material science. Meant to say the inventor's thoughts on this. So this is the words of Rudolf Diesel. The first commercial four-stroke IC engine was the Italian Barsanti-Mattucci engine, patented in the UK in 1857, but IC only came into its own with the improvements made by the German engineers Nicholas Otto and Eugene Langen in 1877. Four-stroke IC engines that use electrical ignition from spark plugs are still known as Otto engines. Although much more efficient than steam engines, the Otto engine did not even begin to approach the thermal efficiency of the Carnot heat engine. A modern four-stroke engine only averages a thermal efficiency of around 30%. On the evening of September 29, 1913, the German engineer and inventor of the diesel engine Rudolf Diesel boarded a ferry from Antwerp bound for England. Although the First World War would break out in less than a year, there was nothing secret about Diesel's trip to the country that would soon be at war with his homeland. He was traveling to London for a routine meeting with the British manufacturers of his engines. He retired to his cabin at 10 p.m., asking the steward to wake him up at 6:15 a.m. The next morning, his cabin was found to be empty, and a subsequent search found no trace of him aboard. 10 days later, a body was found floating in the channel by a Dutch fishing boat. The body was in such poor state that the crew did not bring it aboard. Instead, they retrieved personal items from the body that might help in its identification. In October, Rudolph's family confirmed that the items belonged to the missing man. Diesel's main biographer believed that depressed and exhausted from overwork, Diesel had suffered a mental breakdown and taken his own life. But at the same time, conspiracy theories abound in the British press. With war about to break out, it was suggested that German military intelligence had had a hand in his death. In order to prevent him from passing on any more of his inventions to the British, another more recent theory was that he was murdered on the orders of the oil industry, as he planned engines that would run on biodiesel, thus ending the lucrative monopoly of the petroleum companies on the production of fuel for IC engines. Despite the passage of almost a century, no evidence of a plot has ever been uncovered. Hence, it is unlikely that the inventor's death was a mystery worth of an Agatha Christie novel. Diesel dreamed of creating an engine as efficient as Carnot's ideal engine. And although in theory diesel's design could reach 75% efficiency, in practice they currently peak at 50% and average around 45%. This is still about 15% better than the efficiency of most auto engines. The thermal efficiency of a diesel engine means, of course, that it uses less fuel for the same amount of work. Diesel oil itself is cheaper to produce from petroleum than gasoline and can more easily be substituted with biofuels without any costly conversion of the engine. Although not a green fuel, diesel produces very little carbon monoxide, which makes it a deal for use in mines and submarines. Because the diesel engine does not use a high voltage ignition system, it has a much higher, simpler overall design than a gasoline engine, with, which, which also makes it more reliable. The high pressures needed in a diesel engine mean that they have to be of much sturdier construction than gasoline engines, giving them a much longer working life. These advantages made diesel an obvious choice to replace steam and drive the heavy industrial transportation plant of the second industrial revolution. I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, so I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with the author and be like, they set out to kill him. 100%. They had their own agenda and they set out to legit kill this dude just because they don't have the evidence. I mean, really, because no evidence has been uncovered. Back then, it was easy to kill people, make them go away, and never be heard from again. So easy to do. So I'm gonna go ahead and be like, I'm gonna put on my conspiracy here, like theory hat, and we're gonna go through this. First off, the body was in such poor state that they couldn't even bring it aboard. That speaks to me that, more happened. There was more that happened in the background than was actually, you know, talked about. Like, if a person were to go the unfortunate way by their own hands, let's put it, PG terms for YouTube especially, they tend to just, one and done, right? One and done, simple, quick, because you can't do much. But if the body is such a poor state, it kind of makes me think that there were wounds on the body or there were certain, inflictions that were imposed upon this man. Because I'm thinking, if it's a couple weeks and if it is like Europe, if it is that area, and if it is like kind of like a springish winter time frame, the body you think would still be well preserved in an icy cold water, especially in that region. So I don't understand how this would not be possible that he would just get, taken off the earth. Like, why not? I mean, it just says that Germany would now be at war with England very shortly, and we know how that one goes. And also, the monopolies, the oil monopolies, and the fact that this engine could run on different fuel than what was being, sold in the market at the time. That's another thing we don't think about, that like these inventors, sometimes they pay with their life for their inventions.